Now, there's one huge area of agreement among Republicans and Democrats, the U.S. tax code. Well, it's 5,100 pages, and they all agree it's out of control. The alternative minimum tax is just one example of the insanity here. So is the flat tax, a single tax rate for everyone, and maybe one sheet of paper, the best way to bring fairness and simplicity to a system that is neither fair nor simple? John Bertu is president of the National Taxpayers Union and favors the flat tax. Bob McIntyre, director of the Citizens for Tax Justice, opposes said tax. All right, John, let's begin with you. A flat tax. Explain just in a couple of sentences the most compelling reason to adopt it.
Higher economic growth, simplicity. You mentioned the enormous number of pages, 5,100 pages in our tax code. Americans are spending 6 to 7 billion hours this year filling out their taxes, and the current system is costing the economy hundreds of billions of dollars. We can do much, much better. A flat tax is a great solution.
John, before I get Robert's rebuttal here, do you exempt people below a certain income level from paying it at all to retain a certain level of progressivity here?
We do. I mean, it's not as progressive as the current system, as Bob will point out, but it retains progressivity under, for example, the Forbes flat tax. There's large personal and family exemptions. I think the first $42,000 of income for a family of four is exempt. So again, it's not as progressive as the current tax system, but there is still an element of progressivity here.
Robert, it's pretty compelling. I mean, even when you add together that you've got 6 or 7 billion hours being spent by Americans, I mean, there's a lot of productivity and time being lost in the current system.
Well, if you look at what's wrong with our current tax code, there's plenty. I mean, it's way too complicated. It doesn't raise enough money to pay for the government, so we run big budget deficits. And there's way too many loopholes for big corporations and wealthy people to get away with murder. We need to fix those things, absolutely. But the flat tax moves us in exactly the wrong direction. You remember, the flat tax only taxes people on their wages. So the rich people with their capital gains and dividends and so forth, they don't pay tax on that, and then they get a much lower tax rate. So they make out like bandits. Well, where does the money come from then? It comes from middle and low income people.
John, that's an interesting point. So what would you say to a so-called flat tax that was on all income, whether it came from wages or from capital gains?
Well, I mean, what we're saying, all we're doing under a flat tax is we're not taxing it twice as we currently are. We're taxing it once. Under a flat tax, you
well,
tax
on the
it
dividend, but what about the capital gain?
Well, you just tax it at the corporate level, and we're not going to tax it twice.
All right, Robert, what do you think about that? I mean, exempt dividends from it.
Well, here's the bottom line for the flat tax. They want to raise taxes on middle-income people and cut taxes on wealthy people. And if middle America wants that, well, then vote for the flat tax. But it's going to mean a large tax increase, not trivial, thousands of dollars a year more for the typical middle-income family and hundreds of thousands of dollars less for very wealthy people.
Robert, they're saying, though, a flat tax of 19%. Does the average middle American family pay less than 19% of their wage income right now?
Well, look at it this way. Under the current law, a family of four with 2 children pays no tax at all up to $42,000.
Which would be retained.
In fact, they get a negative tax below that, so they get tax credits that a check from the Treasury. Above that, until you make about $100,000, your tax rate is 15%, less than the flat tax rate, even the 19% that's proposed, which is not enough to pay for the government. So all those people have to pay much more, from $0 all the way up to $100,000. Now, if you make $1 million and it's all capital gains, your tax under the flat tax is 0. Now, that's a disaster.
All right. Well, look, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. I think this was enough to whet the appetite and likely the passions of our viewers. Thanks very much to both of you for joining us.
Thank you.
One thing we can be assured of is that the flat tax and other measures for reform of that 5,100-page tome will be discussed often over the next couple of years. Next on Street Signs, a boardroom sex scandal lands World Bank President Paul Wolfowitz in hot water. Will he be able to keep his job as president of the World Bank? And then a polar bear that made a stock double in a week. Stay tuned for the tale of Canute and the investors that love him.